Hello everybody and welcome back to the Halo Chronicle. Today's video is another installment in my Halo short stories. Most of us have seen the massive extragalactic Halo forging location called the Ark in Halo 3 and Halo Wars 2, but what if I told you that this structure was not the first of its kind? Before the construction of the Ark that you see in those games, there was another, much more colossal structure with the same function. This structure was called the Greater Ark, and it was 3 times bigger than the Ark we know today. It produced Halos that were 3 times bigger and had many more problems than the installations we see today as well. This Greater Ark would become the last bastion of the Forerunner Empire, and it would be where they would make their final stand. Its destruction signaled the end of the Forerunner Ecumene and gave the Forerunners no choice but to activate a new, much more powerful array of Halos. Today's topic is the Greater Ark, its history, use, and ultimately, its destruction. Let's jump into it. About 120,000 years before the events of Halo combat evolved, a terrible war would be waged in the Milky Way. The galaxy's caretakers, the Forerunners, would battle an ancestral form of humanity commonly referred to as ancient humanity. Ancient humanity had pressed into Forerunner territory and began bombarding their worlds without provocation. In response, the Forerunners declared war and led an efficient campaign that pushed humanity back to the core of their empire. The Forerunners delivered a finishing blow to the ancient human empire on their capital world, Jerome Hakor. After defeating their rival, the Forerunners would learn a disturbing truth. The ancient humans did not invade Forerunner space to claim new territory. Humanity was running from a much more dangerous foe. An insidious, highly contagious, and virulent infection called the Flood was ravaging human-controlled space. Ancient humanity did their best to quell the spread of the infection, but in some cases, their efforts were not enough. Ancient humanity was forced to flee their homes and seek shelter in other areas of the galaxy. When they found pockets of infection, they bombarded entire planets to block the Flood's advance. To the surprise of the Forerunners, ancient humanity was able to slow and even repel the spread of the Flood during the later stages of the war. The Forerunners attempted to burn away any pockets of infection that still remained, but it was feared that some Flood-infested ships had fled the galaxy entirely. After studying some captured Flood samples, the Forerunners came to the conclusion that if the Flood were to return, it could easily overwhelm the galaxy in just a few hundred years. This fear would rule the Forerunner political arena for thousands of years. The Forerunner Council commissioned the leaders of the Forerunner Ecumene for ideas on how to combat the Flood should it return. After reviewing over 1,000 plans, only 2 were ever truly considered and sent to testing. One would be presented by the Didact, who called for the creation of hundreds of shield worlds. Shield worlds were essentially artificial planets with a protective shell. These shield worlds would act as fortresses to protect imperiled species from the Flood's advance. It would also allow the Forerunner warrior servants to coordinate the defense of the Forerunner Ecumene. The second plan would be presented by the leader of the Forerunner Builder Raid, the Master Builder. The Master Builder called for the creation of an array of weapons that could be used as a last resort. These weapons could fire a pulse throughout the galaxy capable of killing off all intelligent life. This would eliminate any food source the Flood could use to sustain itself. This array would be called the Halo Array. The original Halo array would consist of 12 ring-shaped installations with one extragalactic forging location called the Ark. The debate over which plan to consider would rage in the Forerunner political arena for nearly 1,000 years. In the end, the Master Builder would use the immense amount of wealth and power the Builders accumulated during the Human Forerunner War to sway and manipulate the Forerunner Council into siding with his proposal. Fearing that the Council could reconsider their position, the Master Builder rushed the construction of the first array of Halos before all design choices could be considered and finalized. This array would later be called the senescent array, and its forging location would be called the Greater Arc. Rushing into construction before properly finalizing a design would later come back to haunt the master builder. During the final stages of construction, two major design flaws were discovered. First would be the immense size of each Halo installation. The senescent Halo installations would measure 30,000 kilometers in size. To put that in perspective, that is 3 times bigger than any Halo ever seen in a Halo game. This unruly size made the senescent Halos very difficult to transport or even move. Transporting even one of these Halos would create an enormous amount of particle reconciliation debt that could halt all Forerunner travel and even communications. The second major design flaw would be the firing mechanism. The senescent Halos could only fire linearly in one direction at a time. Couple that with the difficulty in moving each Halo, and it becomes nearly impossible to send a pulse throughout the entire galaxy simultaneously. This leaves avenues that the Flood could use to escape. To remedy this issue, the Master Builder secretly ordered the creation of a new array of Halo installations. This array would be much smaller, measuring at only 10,000 kilometers, thus making them easier to transport. They would also be equipped with an upgraded firing mechanism that could fire in all directions simultaneously. This array would be called the Neoteric Halo Array. This array would also come with its own forging location called Installation 00, or the Lesser Arc. This is the arc seen in Halo 3 and Halo Wars 2. The Master Builder considered using the Lesser Arc to help shrink the senescent Halos to a more manageable 10,000 kilometer diameter, but this plan was quickly abandoned. Even though the Halo installations were extremely powerful, they were also extremely delicate. Reducing the Halos came with a high level of risk that the Master Builder was not comfortable with. Construction of the Neoteric Halo Array would take over 300 years to complete. In that time, the Master Builder did everything in his power to keep the flaws of the first array from being revealed to the Forerunner Council, but all of his efforts would be in vain. The Council would eventually learn about the flaws of the array, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. The Flood would return to the Milky Way shortly after the construction of the senescent array concluded. After word of the senescent array's flaws reached the Forerunner Council and the Flood began rampaging through the Milky Way once again, a test firing of a Halo installation was ordered to confirm its viability. A senescent Halo installation was transported to the Jerome Hakor system. The Halo was tuned to a system-wide setting to prevent too much collateral damage. Jerome Hakor, once the capital of ancient humanity, was encased by precursor structures. These structures were left behind by the species responsible for seeding all life in the Milky Way, the precursors. These precursor artifacts were seen as monuments. They were treated with reverence and seen as sacred artifacts. The Halo test firing revealed something unexpected and unwelcomed. The radiation created by the Halos nullified neural physics, the precursor science used in their architecture, and destroyed all of the precursor structures in the Jerome Hakor system. These results caused a stir amongst the Forerunner counselors. They saw the destruction of the precursor structures as sacrilegious. Couple that with the array's defects, and the entire use of the Halo array was put into question. The Master Builder lost favor with the Forerunner Council. Other plans to combat the Flood would be considered. Despite this, the construction of the Neoteric array continued in secret. All but one of the senescent Halos were brought to the Forerunner capital for possible decommission. The Greater Arc was turned over to the Forerunner life workers led by the Librarian. They would use the Greater Arc to store live specimens and genetic samples as a part of the conservation measure. The conservation measure was an emergency failsafe protocol that would be enacted in the event of the Halo array being activated. Once enacted, live specimens and genetic samples would be returned to their home planets in an effort to repopulate the galaxy following the activation of the Halo array. A large population of humans would be stored on the Greater Ark as a part of this measure. During this time, the Forerunners would suffer a terrible attack on their capital. The Flood Gravemind infected the Forerunners' most powerful artificial intelligence with the logic plague and turned it against them. This AI would be called Mendicant Bias, and it would appear in the capital system with the stolen Halo installation. Using its vast resources, Mendicant Bias attempted to seize control of the senescent Halos stored in the capital system. It wanted to activate them and cripple the Forerunner governing body. The Forerunners mounted a fierce defense of their capital, but in the end it wasn't enough. Mendicant Bias fired a significantly damaged Installation 07 in the capital system. Only 2 senescent Halos would survive the battle: Zeta Halo, controlled by the Flood, and Omega Halo, controlled by the Forerunners, which was able to escape the system during the battle. Almost all of the Forerunners in the capital system would die in the attack. Only a very small group of Forerunner counselors would survive, as they were hidden deep within the Forerunner capital planet, Maithrillion. After this attack, the remaining Forerunner counselors would travel to the Greater Ark. The Greater Ark would become the makeshift Forerunner capital for the remainder of the war. The Forerunner Flood War would rage throughout the Milky Way for the next 300 years. In that time, the Forerunners would suffer loss after loss. To make matters even worse, the Flood gained access to a new weapon. Somehow, the Flood gained the knowledge on how to access and use precursor structures. One of these structures would be called Star Roads. Star Roads were large, ribbon-like structures made out of enormous threads. These colossal structures were capable of destroying entire Forerunner fleets and even planets. They also corrupted slipspace travel to better suit precursor transit. This made it difficult for the Forerunners to flee the Flood's advance. Within a very short window of time, the Flood would consume more than 2/3 of the known galaxy. In desperation, the Forerunner Council would return the Master Builder to power. This was done when he revealed the existence of the Neoteric Array. His first command would be to order all of the remaining Forerunners to retreat to the Greater Ark to take shelter from the Flood's advance. The Greater Ark would become the last bastion of the Forerunner Ecumene. To help protect the Greater Ark, Omega Halo would be brought into orbit around the installation. With all of the remaining Forerunners taking shelter at the Greater Ark, it became clear that there was only one solution to the current crisis. The Forerunners would need to disperse and activate the Neoteric Halo Array. The Master Builder charged a Forerunner named Bornstellar, also known as the Isodidact, with this task. Before Bornstellar could make his way to the Lesser Ark, the Flood would come to finish off the Forerunners. Precursor Star Roads appeared and surrounded the Greater Ark and Omega Halo on all sides. Knowing that this would be the Forerunners' final stand, the Master Builder would make a great sacrifice. He would fire Omega Halo at the approaching Star Roads. This would cut a hole in their formation and give Forerunners a path to escape. This hole would allow the Librarian, the original Didact, and eventually the Isodidact to escape the incoming slaughter. Due to the immense size and slow movement of Omega Halo, the Master Builder was unable to reposition it and fire again before the Star Roads closed in on the installation. The Star Roads wrapped themselves around Omega Halo and broke the installation into pieces. The Master Builder would be killed in its destruction. After Omega Halo was destroyed, the Star Roads would turn their focus to the Greater Ark itself. Like Omega Halo, the Star Roads wrapped themselves around the massive Halo forging location and literally shattered it into pieces. the Greater Ark would be no more. The Forerunners made the Flood's victory at the Greater Ark bittersweet. The Isodidact was able to reach and disperse the 6 Neoteric Halo installations across the galaxy. These 6 installations, along with the 7th, formerly rogue Zeta Halo, would be activated. A pulse of radiation would spread across the galaxy. This radiation would kill all intelligent life, leaving the Flood to starve. A very small group of remaining Forerunners would invoke the Librarian's conservation measure. Using specimens and samples stored at the Lesser Ark and gathered from the Greater Ark prior to its destruction, they would repopulate the galaxy. I hope you enjoyed this video detailing the history of one of the most important Forerunner installations, the Greater Ark. If you enjoyed this video and have not already done so, please consider subscribing. If you have any ideas for future Halo short stories that you would like to see, let me know your ideas in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.